Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in Salesforce Epics Hour. Today we are going to talk about B2B commerce and we have a Shen Smith with us. So let me hand over him for the presentation and the demo.
Everyone, my name is Shane Smythe. I am part of the Salesforce ecosystem for a number of years now. I'm currently a Salesforce MVP, and today we're going to be talking about getting started with Salesforce B2B commerce. So just a little bit of background. I've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 15 years. I run a Salesforce Mojo YouTube channel, which focuses on different type of Salesforce clouds. Right now, I'm really focused on B2B commerce. So a lot of this content comes from some of the videos I have on my channel, kind of coalesced together into this mini masterclass on getting started with B2B commerce. So without further ado, let's get into some of the content, and then towards the end, we'll get into some live demoing. You can actually see the product working in one of my instances. So the first thing I like to start with is we're here talking about B2B commerce, which is quite a bit different than B2C commerce. When we talk about B2B commerce, we're talking about how a business is transacting with another business. And this is a lot different than a traditional consumer commerce product, because you go to Amazon or Nike or Apple and you're buying as a consumer, and the transaction is relatively straightforward. There's a product, I want to purchase it, it costs this amount of money. With B2B, it's quite a bit different. There's a lot of things we have to take into account, a lot of different type of payment methods. Sometimes they're doing purchase order, sometimes they're doing credit card. You've got to consider things from warehouses and inventory that you might not have to consider when it comes to B2C commerce. So that's the first thing I call out, is this product that we'll be reviewing today is really targeted around B2B. It does have some direct-to-consumer functionality as well, but we'll be mostly talking about its B2B capability. So inside of the Salesforce ecosystem, we've got a lot of different clouds. So I just wanted to orientate everyone on, where does this sit? Commerce Cloud is part of a series of different products. We have B2B commerce, we'll talk about today. We've got order management, we've got B2C commerce, payments now, and a few others as well, and kind of this bundle here. But as part of Commerce Cloud, it is helping connect that journey across multiple different channels. Now, when it comes to actually where the platform sits, B2B commerce is a native application inside of core Salesforce. So this is an Experience Cloud site. You can kind of see here in the middle here. That is the front end of the experience. This is what the users see. But behind the scenes, this is all built off of some shared commerce services and ultimately data and objects inside of Salesforce. So we're going to be talking about data quite a bit today because it is an essential part of Commerce Cloud. So all this is built up to be the B2B product. And you can see up here, we've got two different types of templates, but we'll be focusing mostly on the B2B one. So as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about data quite a bit today. So data. Without data, we cannot have a commerce application. It is a very data-rich product, and you have to make sure you really understand what is required in order to get going. So to begin with, let's start with a really high-level overview. This is a really simplistic version of the objects and entities inside of the commerce product. You can see here in the middle, we've got our store. And our store is where everything is rotating off of. You can have multiple different stores in your B2B products. You could have, one for different sub-brands or different product lines if that makes sense to your business. But you have to start with a store. And then once you have your store, you start to build things up around it. So you've got your catalog, which is all the products connected to categories, connected to prices, connected to variations of products. And once you have your products and kind of this segment down here identified, then you've got to deal with your shopper experience, which has things like search and cart and checkout, profiles, permission sets, etc. And then towards the right-hand side of this diagram over here, you have to consider your users. So who's accessing your store? What do they get to access? What type of products? and who within the accounts has the privilege to log in and actually purchase. And this is where it starts to get more complicated than a B2C experience, right? Typically on a B2C experience, you go to a storefront and anyone can purchase anything at the same exact price. That is not the case with B2B commerce. So you can see we've got ideas like the entitlement policy, which determines which products certain accounts can actually go and view that product. And then you have certain prices and price books that each buyer group or set of buyers, collections of buyers, can see at that specific price. So you can see we're starting to deviate from like a simple B2C experience into this is specific to this group of accounts that can see these type of things and experience this type of experience. So this is a really high level overview. Just to click a little bit into the groupings of data, this is how I think about it. And there's a couple of more on here, but these are the main ones. You got your store data, you got your product data, your buyer data, cart, promotion, and order. So those are the main 6 here. Now I've got a blog out on my site, Salesforce-Mojo, that talks in depth about the Commerce Cloud data model, and it actually walks through all the different objects associated with each one of these categories. So if you're interested in diving deep into that, you can check that out. On that, you'll also see this diagram, which is an eye chart for those viewing now. But if you go to that blog, you can actually go directly into this Lucid chart. It's completely open, so anyone can go and view it. And this is the main map here that has all the objects. And then each one of the colors is one of those categories I just talked about. And you can actually dive into a sub tab in each one of those that will talk about each one of the objects that's supported there. And again, just to give you a little sampling, if we're talking specifically about products, you have several different objects in play here. Now, you might be familiar with the top 2, and you probably should be if you've dealt with Sales or Service Cloud for a while. But you have your product and your price book. Those are the standard objects that you're used to. Now, everything underneath it is commerce specific. So we've got our pricing adjustment, our categories, our entitlements, our product variations, which we'll talk more about here in a moment, quantity rules, product median. There's actually more now on this list. So you can see that just inside of the product category, it's quite a few data types you have to deal with. So that's the first thing I'll mention here as we start diving into commerce is as you're getting into commerce, be aware of the data because the data fuels the experience that your users have. And if you, for instance, miss an entitlement policy, your products won't show in the store. And so it's a helpful thing to understand so that you can, diagnose and debug if you're running into issues as you're getting started. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the commerce lifecycle. The commerce lifecycle is at the surface relatively straightforward. You got your cart that you have as a user. You can fill that cart up with as many products as you want within limits. And once you have that cart, you go into checkout and you place an order. And that order turns into an order summary in Salesforce. And we'll talk about that once we get into some of the demoing here in a moment. But just as a summary of it for now, the order is the stamp and time for when the customer made that purchase. And most Salesforce orgs have this standard order object, and it's used in a lot of different ways depending on the customizations that have gone inside of that org. The order summary is a commerce and order management specific object, and this is a rolled up version of this order, and it is used to compute changes. There's a couple different types of order summaries, but you are able to make adjustments to these orders through order management. And because you are able to make those changes, the order summary is kind of the rolled up version of that. Now let's click a little bit further into this cart to order lifecycle here. So as I mentioned, you've got your cart to order summary. And as you think about this life cycle here, this is a good exercise to do if you're getting started, either as a business or someone who's trying to implement this. You need to think about what does this life cycle look like all the way through completion? Because a simple order being created is not the end of the journey. That's really the beginning of the journey. You need to get that order all the way to the person's doorstep or to their business. And for companies, these have very different ways of doing this. Sometimes it's a simple, we have one product, we ship it out, parcel, FedEx, UPS, whatever it may be. And sometimes it's, you have to deal with freight. Sometimes you have to split the order into multiple locations and more complex things. So as you're evaluating, what does your life cycle look like? Evaluate, how does it get from, the business to the other business? So some things you might want to think about are some statuses that you can use to determine where this order is at. These are some simple ones that you kind of get out of the box and maybe a little bit of adjustment from there, but you've got created, you've got ready for processing, fulfilling, shipped, and completed. And your business might have 5 other ones. It's pretty common to have some business specific ones. But in this example here, when the order summary is created, the status is created. It's pretty typical then to move it into ready for processing. When you're dealing with a commerce application, you're dealing with a lot of integrations. And we're going to talk more about integrations towards the end of our presentation here. But one of the big ones is typically an ERP of some sort. So ERP is responsible for fulfilling the orders, typically managing warehousing, some of the billing aspects of the company as well. And so when you're dealing with a commerce application, you want to think about, how do I integrate to my ERP so that this product or this order can be fulfilled? So in this case, when it moves to ready for processing, we are typically sending this information over to an ERP as an order, saying, hey, we've got a new order. And that ERP is going to facilitate the fulfillment. It's going to go find what products need to be sent out. It's going to potentially create a shipment record here. And all this information is going to be used to push back into Salesforce to keep these statuses updated. So let's say that we've created a fulfillment now in the ERP, and we're going to push an update back to Salesforce saying that we're now fulfilling. So if a user actually checks in the storefront, they can see that it's moved from a simple created status to fulfilling. And then when a shipment has been created and has gone out the door, we can change the status to shipped. And this allows the user to see that, hey, my order is coming to me. And then once it actually has been shipped and has been delivered, we can move it to complete. We can move on. So that's kind of maybe a one click down into the life cycle of the ordering process. But I encourage you to kind of take a look at this and think about it from your business perspective. How do I get an order all the way through the life cycle completely? And that's how you would define your life cycle. So with any good commerce product, there's a lot of different a lot of different product types. And these product types allow you to make your storefront unique to you. Now, in Commerce Cloud, there are 4 different types of products today. One, there's a simple product that is, I'm just buying a hat, or I'm just buying this one part, and that's it. There's nothing else more complicated than that. It's the simplest of products. Second one is what they call variations. And this allows you to select a few different variations about that product. So now let's say, going back to the hat example, I'm buying a medium hat that's blue. So you've got 2 different variations you're selecting on. And that's how you start to get a little more nuance in what you're purchasing, because there might be different sizes or colors that you want your users to be able to select from. Then we've got a set, and a set is a loose grouping of products. So you might have a hat and a water bottle and a shirt that people typically like to purchase together, but they're not required to. And so there's a set that you can say, here's a set, and you can add it all to the cart at once, but then the user has the ability still to remove one of those items from their cart. They don't have to purchase all of them together. Lastly, we've got our bundle here. And a bundle is just what it sounds like. You're buying this one bundle of products. It comes together. You can't manipulate it. It is what it is. And I've got some examples of that here in a moment. But just to make this a little bit more real, we've got our sink faucet here as an example. And if you've watched my Salesforce Mojo videos, you know that one of my demo brands is Tiny Homes, which has a lot of these faucets and sinks and bathroom type of items to show what a manufacturing company might be selling. And just to talk a little bit about the data elements with this, because this is an important aspect of it, going back to our data. When you're setting up a product, it's not just setting up the product, there's actually connected records that you have to consider as well. So I'll kind of show this in the next couple of slides here about what you need to consider for each of these type of products. So we've got our product, and then we need to set up a category so that it actually shows up on a category page. And we need to give it an entitlement record so that it actually shows up in the storefront for those specific users. And lastly, it needs a price book entry because it needs a price in order to purchase that item. So that's a simple product. Moving on to variation products, we've got our parent product. And you can see here that we've got the category entitlements over here, and we have something called an attribute set. An attribute set is the set of different fields that make up the selection. So in this case, for this faucet, we are only selecting the color. So we only have one value in this attribute set. The child product is going to have different options inside of that one color field. So black or brass in this case to distinguish the two different types they can select from. And you're going to have a child product for each one of these variations. And these child products are going to need entitlements and price book entries. And you'll notice kind of the distinction of the different types of data between the product parent and the child product. Now we've got our product set here. Product set is, like I mentioned before, you can purchase both this faucet sink and this mirror together. They're typically purchased together. And so you can have each one of these child products part of this set. Again, data differences between the set up here, which is category entitlement, and the child product, which is entitlement and price book entry. In this case, you'd have two childs to this one set. So last one is the product bundle. So similar to, let's make sure I build this all the way out here. Similar to the set here, but now these are all purchasable only together. So you can see individually the price is 50, 180, and 88. But bundled together, they're going to buy one item in their cart at $300. And that bundle at the top determines what that price is and the categories entitlements that are a part of it. Okay, so moving on to our orchestration and extensions. So we're moving pretty quick here, but I want to touch on some of the areas that make Commerce Cloud special, in my opinion. So B2B commerce applications are fairly complex. It's usually not out of the box. You usually have to customize it to a certain degree because B2B operations usually have some specialness about it for each company. So Salesforce knew this, and they've built a couple of extensions into the storefront. And what this allows you to do is, without ripping out all of the front-end UI, you can quickly and easily make changes to the logic layer of Commerce Cloud. And that's what orchestration and extensions allow you to do. So there are two different type of extension types today. There are domain extensions and there are endpoint extensions. And to give you a couple of examples here. So to begin with, we've got our orchestrator. And I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment, but on the surface, it allows you to say which one of these extensions you want to run. Underneath that, we've got our calculators. These are specifically for the checkout experience, and they allow you to specify what prices, tax, inventory, promotion, and shipping all do in checkout. And then we have our services, which are holistic changes to the site. So if I make a change to my pricing service, every time you see price on the entire site, no matter what page it is, it will use that same logic. So it's very powerful to change the fundamentals of how the commerce application functions and works. So a little bit more into the orchestration. Again, I've got a YouTube video out on this and a blog that has this diagram and walks you through this in more detail, because this does get a little bit into the coding side of things. So I won't spend too much time on that today. But again, just to click into it one more level down, The orchestrator allows you to say, I want to run these type of extensions, and I don't want to run these at all. So you do have some options to turn on and off. For instance, if I don't want to run inventory, I could update my orchestrator and comment this out or take this section out and say I don't want to run inventory. I don't need to worry about that on my store. And you could also do the same thing with promotions potentially too. That's usually less of what we see here. Usually it's more of, I want to change the logic of when it runs. Maybe in your case, you don't want shipping to only run when the delivery group is changed, but you want to do it every time the item is changed. You want shipping to run again, and you want to make sure shipping is updated. So that's something that you could do in your orchestrator. And then you can kind of see from your orchestrator how the cart calculators we just talked about and the services all connect together. So it always goes to the calculator first, checks that, and then the calculator pulls from the service classes, whether that's the default pricing service class or a custom service class that you've created. All right, so now that we know a little bit about the orchestrator and extensions, let's go into checkout. Now, your storefront experience, all of it's important, and all of it has different nuances and customizations. Arguably, one of the most important pages in the commerce experience is checkout, because checkout allows you to actually make the purchase. And at the end of the day, that's what you want your customers to do. So a little bit in depth on what the checkout looks like. And we're actually going to look at this live here in a moment in the storefront. But in checkout, you've got 5 main sections to begin with. Number 1 is you've got your contact information. Now, if you're a guest user, you have to fill this in to a certain degree. If you are a B2B logged in authenticated user, this is automatically filled out for you. And so that's, I guess, a key note here is that B2B does allow you to do guest as well. So you've got that first section. Then once you get into the meat of checkout, you have your shipping address. You've got your delivery method. So is it ground? Is it air? Is it freight, etc.? You got your payment method, and you have your billing address. Each one of these sections is required in order to proceed through checkout. And there's lots of opportunities to customize. There's a lot of opportunities to add sections. In some cases, customers want the ability to do certain things in between these, or maybe these look a little bit different for your business. So there's lots of flexibility there. On the right-hand side, you can kind of see what happens under the hood. Under the hood, we're validating the cart, reserving inventory, checking coupons, creating payment intents, attaching these to the order, creating the order and closing the cart, and eventually going to that order confirmation page. Now, if you want an in-depth version of this diagram, you can go to that link on the right-hand side. I've actually also created a blog that not only goes through these surface level items, but they go through every standard component and what objects they pull from and when they pull from it as you're acting with them. So it's actually a really helpful diagram and walkthrough to really understand how does checkout function. And I feel like this is a really important thing to understand before you start customizing it, because it's very easy to accidentally make changes to checkout without knowing what is going on underneath the hood. And this can actually be a detriment to you later on. So it's really important to make sure you understand what you're doing. So as I mentioned, customizing your storefront, fairly typical. Checkout's one of those areas. Checkout's not the only area. You can see a couple of examples on the right-hand side that I've done or seen over the years. Creating map components for office locations, creating review components here, or rating components, and or having custom banners or custom promotion banners at the top or main banners at the center. Like there's a ton of opportunity to customize for your business. So how do you actually do that? So Salesforce, again, knows that you want to customize. That's one of the reasons why you're buying this product, and this capability here is to provide that branded experience to your customers. So they have 4 different APIs or types of ways to extend the storefront experience. And there's probably a couple more I'm missing on this list here, but these are the main ones. The first one is that you've got your standard Connect API. And the commerce experience, it utilizes the Connect API to actually go and do all the things you're asking it to do. So for instance, if you ask for pricing, you're going to ask that through the Connect API, because the Connect API is going to be the one that says, hey, this user is logged in. Because this user is logged in, we should go look at the buyer group. We should go find the associated price book and the price book entry for the product they're asking for. So that's why it's so important to actually use the Connect APIs, because it's using all of the built-in logic from your data. Instead of just saying, let me go find that price book entry, it's using all of that. The second one is the Storefront Action API. These action APIs allow you to speed up the development. So for instance, if you're trying to create a custom add to cart component, instead of having to go manually do a DML into the cart and verify the rules, quantity, capabilities, all that stuff, there's a lot that goes underneath it. Salesforce provides a storefront action for add to cart, and you can import that into your LWC. You can use that straight in your LWC, and now it facilitates all of the complexity, right? It does all the validation for you. It adds to the cart. It does everything needed. And so it creates quite a few nice to have actions in there that make it easier to actually do development. Next, we've got our expressions. Our expressions allow us to pull in data elements into our components. And I'll show a couple of examples of this when we get into the demo here. But it lets you speed up, and all the standard storefronts are actually based off of expressions. Next, we have our extensions. We've already talked about extensions, so I won't go into that again. But each one of these areas allows you to extend the commerce experience in a little bit more depth. So before we keep moving on, what do I need to consider for integrating with my storefront? A good connected storefront should never be on an island by itself. Otherwise, it's not going to be relevant. It's not going to be, it's not going to have the right products or prices. It's not going to have the right statuses for your orders. So I put together this list here. And this list is what we typically see when integrations are a part of your commerce storefront. So on the left-hand side in the middle, we've got our name and description. On the right-hand side, we've got our type here. And then we've got source and destination. This is for you to fill out on the source and destination if you were to use this table. Some of these are pretty straightforward. So we've got accounts, contacts, products, categories, images, and content. All of those typically are some type of batch integration. If you've got a PIM or some other system that manages your products in ERP, usually it's going to come from there, and you'll want some integration to bring those products in. And then you've got your accounts and contacts. Maybe those live in Salesforce, and that's the master of truth. And so you would need an integration with that. And sometimes you have other systems that are in play. The bottom section of this table here is more near real time type of integrations. So we've got our inventory levels, we have pricing, we've got our order submission and updates. And these are really where it starts to differentiate your storefront, right? So if you've got real-time inventory or near real-time inventory, you can tell your customers where or what level your products are at, and even where they could purchase it from. So that's really valuable information to help them, to help you close that sale with them. And of course, order submission, once you actually submit that, you need to get that fulfilled process. So it needs to go out to some ERP. And then that ERP ideally needs to send you status information back so you could show it to your user. So there's typically at least these integrations, sometimes more integrations. So as you consider your storefront, these are some things to keep in mind. So now before we jump into the demo, how do I get started if I were a user here? First thing is I would go to get a repository called Code Forward. Code Forward is a community project, and we aim to accelerate the availability of starter reference components for customers and partners. So the link's down here at the bottom, but this is one of the open source organizations that I help facilitate. And this gives you raw code for a lot of different components. I think we're up to like 25 or 30 components now across these different areas and a few more here. But if you're looking for, how do I actually go and customize and create an add to cart component? Well, we've got a standard one out of the box that works if you just drop it on the page, and then you can customize from there. You might be wondering, how do I create a shipping address component on the checkout? Make sure that it actually plugs in correctly. Well, we've got one out of the box that you can use to get started with. So this is a really good area. If you're new to commerce, check this out because an example of what you're looking for may already be in there. And lastly, how do I actually get started? So of course, there's some trailheads out there, and you can also, I believe, spin up a trailhead account, and I believe most of them actually have Commerce Cloud enabled from a license perspective now. So that's one option. My preference is to do it from a scratch org perspective if I can. So you will want to start with getting a CLI set up if you haven't already locally, SF, and then you can create a scratch org. You'll then create a store, publish it, create the respective data for both buyers' products and your users, and then you'd activate the store. So really, really simple steps there. It's more complicated than that, but at the surface, that's what you're looking for. And if you're looking to actually do a scratch org, on the right-hand side, I've attached an example of what a scratch org definition file could look like if you're trying to do this from a scratch org perspective. If you're not, you should be able to do it through Trailhead. So that's a quick overview, and without further ado, we're going to actually get into a demo here. So I'm going to hop over into my Salesforce instance. Let's just refresh here to make sure that we're still authenticated. And you'll see that we are in our commerce app. And as I mentioned, this is a core application, so we're not logging into a different site or a different domain or anything like that. This is sales and service. I hop over here, I can see sales and service marketing and all the other apps that I have in my Salesforce experience. So in this store tab, you're going to be able to see your store and everything about your store. So you can see in this instance, I've got two different stores. I've got a B2B store and I've got other ones, and I can create a new store too just by clicking this button. It's going to ask me, what type of experience I want to do, whether it's B2B or D2C. So that's where we're at right now. On the left-hand side, there's different categories of things that you can do over here. And so as you're going in and you're starting from the ground up on your store, you're going to be starting likely with the merchandising. And the merchandising is going to have, a section of products and categories and pricing and other rules. And you'll actually go in here and create your new products. And you can see, if I create new, you've got a side-by-side screen that you can come over here and, add on to this. You can say, I want it to be a variation, what attribute sets, all the things we talked about earlier. You can also create, a new bundle or set, depending on what you're looking for. So all of it is, just clicks inside of the experience if you want to create products, and you also can do this through integration too if you're looking for. And then you would set up your categories. This is your hierarchy that you're going to see within the storefront experience. So in this case, this demo is the Alpine demo that Salesforce does quite a bit. So it's focused on energy drinks and coffee drinks, but you can create whatever categorization you'd like here. And once you're done with your merchandising, then you would hop into your customers, and your customers are your accounts and your buyer groups. And we haven't actually dug too far into buyer groups, and we won't today. But if you're interested in learning more about this, I've got some content out there about it. But one maybe a little bit more definition on this is buyer groups are typically collections of buyers at different levels. So you can see we've got a German market, we've got a registered, self-registered, we've got a default storefront experience, we've got a guest market. And each one of these has a set of actual accounts or buyers inside of it. So if I click in here, you can see each one of these buyer groups has a locale, it has a price book, it has members. So in this case, we actually don't have any members on this one. And then we've got our entitlement policy, which has all of the products that are associated to this entitlements. This is where we start to say, this group of customers gets this price and sees these products. So that's where you can define this. And again, all configuration on the UI here. We haven't gone into promotions, but there is a promotion engine here that gives you the ability to do coupons and automatic promotions. So that is an option here. And then we have our orders. So I'm going to spend a moment and actually just dive a little bit into this one, because this is where you likely will be spending a lot of your time if you go into this experience. So inside of orders here, you can click into one of these and it's going to give you all the details about your order. So this is the order summary, not the order, just for reference. And so you've got your totals at the top, you've got your orders right here, your shipping addresses, your payment methods. And we could spend a full 30 minutes talking about this order summary here, but we don't have time for that. So quick view is that we have the ability to see all of our items here. And if you've got order management turned on, you've got the ability to make adjustments to your order as well. Okay, so let's get into the fun stuff here. So if we go into website design, this is actually where you can define what your experience looks like. So this hops us over into Experience Cloud. And Experience Cloud is where you would actually see the full user experience. Is where you see a site. This is where you would actually go and check out. But we're able to make definition or make changes to the standard definitions here and add things that we'd like to. So for instance, if I were to go into the product page, I could see, here's a sample of what the product looks like. I could make changes to, the pricing cart, for instance. I could make changes to the product variation. Maybe I want the swatches to have this certain radius versus that color. I can make all the changes there. And then I could go into checkout, for instance, and let's say that we've got some customization. We want a custom shipping address component. Well, I can take this one off the page and I can drop in my custom one. And you would do that by going over to your components, and under the custom components down here, you would actually have your own components that would show up here once you've pushed them into your instance. You could drag them onto the page and you could publish the site. So that's a little bit about Experience Cloud. Again, not full in depth on Experience Cloud. I've got some content on it if you're interested in understanding, the life cycle of the DevOps here and pushing on the instance and publishing and making changes to it. But one area I did want to touch on just real quick is that you can see as we are going through the experience, each one of these standard components has a bindings or an expression section. And this is where it's actually using the data that's available to your storefront experience to fuel what shows in this experience. And your custom components can do the same thing. So if you're looking to customize the storefront experience, first look at expressions and the storefront action API before you go and do custom SOQL and DML. So what does this look like if I'm an actual user? Let's go over to my contacts. I'm going to log in as Lauren Bailey. This is just an experience user. So if you have experience building, partner portal or customer portals, same type of experience, you can go over and click login to experience as user. And this will actually log you into the B2B commerce site. You can see I'm logged in as Lauren now. I can go to my products and it will list all my products. This is what we call the category page, which shows all the items inside of the category. And let's say that I only want to look at packs, for instance. I can apply that filter. And once I have that filter selected, it will actually show me all the products inside of that qualified filter. And I'll click into one of these products as an example here. So I can zoom in on my product here and I'll also show tiered discounts. Again, this is not B2C commerce. This is B2B. In a lot of cases, there are tiered discounts. And these tiered discounts allows me to make it more interesting for my customers to purchase more. So let's say I wanted to add 10 items to my cart. That should give me a 10% discount because I'm purchasing within this threshold right here. And now that I've done that, I see my little mini cart right here. I can click into my view cart, which will give me the ability to see what's in my cart right now, the total with the number of items I have in here, a quick snapshot of what the summary is before I head into checkout. Now I'm in checkout and I can see, it automatically fills in the contact information as I mentioned. I'm able to select different addresses if I'd like to. And then once I do that, I would move into shipping methods. For now, I only have one shipping method because we're over $100, and there's some customization you can do as far as the rules of what shipping methods show within the storefront experience in Salesforce. You make modifications to. And then down below here, this is really where you spend a bit of time deciding how do you want this experience to look like. So in this case, we have Salesforce payments enabled in this instance. This gives you the ability to have, purchase order, which is a fairly common payment method in the B2B space, where you can just say, I've got an existing PO, here's the PO number, and you go through purchasing that way. But in a lot of other cases, you want to have credit card as well. So Salesforce payments gives you the ability to do that with credit card, ACH, and a lot of other capabilities as well. So I'm going to actually go and I'm going to purchase this with a test credit card number here. And if all goes well, I should get dropped into an order confirmation page. And once everything is done processing, I can see my order confirmation page. I can see all the items with it, who it was billed to, how much it was over here on the right-hand side. So if we look at this is A5X is my order number. If I hop back into my Salesforce experience, I should see A5X right here. So this is the product we just purchased. You can see that we have our shipping item on here, which was $0 because it was over $100. We have our 10 quantities that we purchased. We've got the address that was selected. We've got our payment record right here, and it was captured for us. We could also configure this to be authorized only if we want to. And then as it moves forward in the life cycle, we would see shipments coming onto this item as well. So that is a quick overview of B2B commerce. There's a lot more to dive into when it comes to what this product can do and how to customize it and how to really get into the details of this. But hopefully that was a good start. And again, if you're looking to get started, I'd encourage you to go to Code It Forward for reference components and go back to the part of the recording where I had that Scratch definition file up. And you should be able to spin up an org here relatively quickly and get going. And if you got any more questions on how to get going, I've got my YouTube channel you can take a look at, and also my blog that will go into more depth on specific areas if you have questions there. Thanks everyone for watching.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much, Sean.
No problem.